All right, let's move on now. The Houston Cougars, another team with a first-year head coach this year, although they had, I would say, a better 2017 than Baylor, than the other teams with a first-year head coach. As Major Applewhite, they go to a bowl game, and this program, I think that it was probably unfair to judge Major Applewhite against Tom Herman.
That's kind of the nature of the job. That's the thing.
Unfortunately.
That's just what it is, yeah.
It's probably, in hindsight, it's probably not the most fair, but it's a reality of the situation. And so I would say it was a moderate step back for the Houston program. My New Year's resolution for Houston is to commit to De'Aaron King. Is commit to him as the quarterback of the future. And say, this is our guy. Now, look, things can change, and Major Applewhite may want to go out and find a recruit. But there was a noticeable difference in the Houston offense when he was the quarterback versus anyone else. Kyle Allen most especially. That when they had this quarterback, things were different. And so for me, it's about De'Aaron King. I want to start formulating the offense around him. The defense, I think, is going to take care of itself. You still have Ed Oliver, who might be the best player in the nation. I think that the secondary had a bit of a down year, but overall, I think that you can say we expect that the younger guys to step up and turn into superstars. To me, the bigger question was always about the quarterback spot, and if they've got a guy, and I think they do in De'Aaron King, who can be the quarterback. I know he's probably not the thrower that Major Applewhite would want, but he is the dynamic playmaker. I think it's again unfair to compare him to like Greg Ward, but I think he could. I think he could. He's the same mold. Maybe he's maybe not as good of a thrower, but I think he's as much of a dynamic threat with his legs. I think the most important thing, their New Year's resolution needs to be to commit to De'Aaron King. And if you're not going to do that, you better be darn sure you have somebody better than him. That's, to me, the biggest thing they can do.
It's a bold move. If I'm Houston, I could spend the first month of the year just thanking the NFL for making players stay in college 3 years.
Boy, howdy.
Because Ed Oliver might have been the first pick 2 years ago. He could have been probably the first pick this year. And we get to watch him in Houston just destroy American offensive lines again.
I don't know if you were, because you're so plugged in, I don't know if you were hearing the same things we were, that like people were saying when Ed Oliver signed out of Spring Westfield to Houston, they were saying he would have been an all-SEC guy. He's going to murder the American Athletic Conference, and the bottom line is that's essentially what he's done.
Pretty much.
He's been. It's so rare, I think, for like people who maybe people who aren't football wonks like you and I, to notice when a defensive lineman, like an interior defensive lineman, is just dominating. But I would talk to like friends who are just like casual football fans, be like, oh my gosh, that guy in the middle is incredible. It's like, yeah, he's really good.
And then the numbers aren't there, so you have to kind of watch for it. Let's before we get into it, let's dream for a little bit.
Oh, let's.
Could you imagine a Houston Texans defensive line?
Oh Lord.
With Mr. Clowney on one end, Mr. Watt on the other, and a Houston native, Ed Oliver, just patrolling the middle, just getting it done. How amazing would that be?
I could be into that. I could definitely be into that.
They're already the most fun defensive line to watch.
Yeah.
Like, would that be possibly the greatest defensive line in like the history of football?
It might. I mean, that would be up there with like the Steel Curtain and stuff like that.
I would want to see that.
It would be incredible.
Getting back in Houston, so is everyone selling all of their Kyle Allen stock? Is everyone out on Mr. Allen?
I think the thing is, I don't think he's a good fit for what Major Applewhite wants to do.
That might be fair. I think I'm not sure that I'm still willing to sell that his upside is not higher than De'Aaron King. Obviously, I think De'Aaron King is better right now. But next year especially, I think you might be right. You're losing Dunbar. You're losing Bonner as well. So finding pass catchers could be an issue, and if you've got a guy that can make some plays with his feet, I think that can come in handy. So I think just pass skill, no running practice, no running, just all throwing.
Yeah.
Just get these guys some reps with new receivers and develop both those guys as passers. I think they've got to have that. You got to be able to put up points in the American. It's kind of just the mini Big 12 in many ways. You got to be able to put up points, and with losing your top two receivers, trying to figure all that out. I mean, you gotta have that, and I think you got to commit to somebody too. I mean, the revolving door. Mr. Kyle Postma leaving us to be the I think the CEO of the Postal Service, if I'm not mistaken. He'll be leaving.
I get it.
There you go. He'll be.
That's what we brought him in here for, folks.
He'll be leaving. the revolving door. I mean, all three of those guys kind of had their chances last year, so you got to commit to somebody. And I think even though those guys are different, I'm generally a one QB guy, even if they're remarkably different. Although, hey, maybe if Houston gets to overtime of the college football playoff semifinal, they can bring in a 2-quarterback set and run an option to the short side of the field. Maybe that would be effective.
Maybe that would work.
Maybe I don't know.
Maybe that would work.
Some ideas.
Let's run that by a mule shoe product and see what happens there.